All right. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. My name is Evan Transu, aka Detective Ev, and I will be your host for today's show, episode number 349 of the Health Detective Podcast. We're rolling right along here. This is technically the first guest that is not a part of FDN, at least in terms of the staffing here, for the podcast in the new headquarters, which is down in North Carolina. So bear with us here. I finally got my mic figured out, so that's one good thing. So the sound quality is better, but I still need my FDN sign. Like, I guess there's something kind of cool about the whole blank background, but then I look at our guests and I'm like, dang, I need to add some credentials to my wall. It would look a lot cooler. Before we get into all of that, I want to shout out a conference, and conferences are powerful. That's actually how Dr. Brian Jones even got into doing FDN. We met him last year at the chiropractic conference in that was Atlanta, Georgia. But there is another one coming up in October of this year. There's another chiropractic conference, but I want to shout out Hicks Live. So this is Jeremy and Jen Maleka. If you guys know those names, you probably should. Jeremy is behind Biocanic, and I know some of you guys are already using that. Jen Maleka, huge name, especially in our world of functional practitioners. She is the whole reason that I got into FDN to begin with, which is amazing. So we have pretty much the entire main part of the staff going to this event in October. It is the 17th through 19th, and it is in beautiful, sunny San Diego. It's in the best spot ever. They got well, you don't know San Diego. It's kind of hard to describe, but that's where I met Jen. So it's basically a mile from the beach on this place where there's like 3 hotels, everything surrounded by a bay. There's beaches on the hotels. They made sure only the best food is going to be served there. They only teamed up with a hotel that could match gluten-free, dairy-free, all that stuff. So if Jen and Jeremy are doing a conference, they are going to do it right. And we want you guys, ideally, if there's any tickets left for this, get the VIP experience, because this is excessive. I don't normally do stuff like this. That's why I'm lucky with this one, because FDN's taking us as staff. So we're going to have a giant boat the one night. There's a huge dinner there. It's great for networking. You can meet some top players in the functional medicine space. So that's Hicks-Live, Hix-Live.com. And you can use the code HDP200 for $200 off either ticket, even general attendance either general attendance or the VIP one. So that's HDP200. And Jeremy will be on next week to talk more about the conference. So if you guys would like to learn more about it then, or ask him questions first, that's totally fine. We will be back on, I think that's August 6th that he's coming on with us. Today, we're talking to Dr. Brian Jones. And like I said, I actually got to meet him at a conference last year down in Atlanta, Georgia. So he got to meet myself, Elizabeth, Reed Davis. So we got the whole crew here. And I thought it was so cool just trying to understand how this went all full circle, because I remembered him well, that he was already using functional lab testing in his practice. He is a chiropractic doctor. And so it's not like it's someone who is coming from a completely different career path, right? He's in this space and he understands this stuff. And so to find that he got value from FDN is amazing. But we'll talk about a lot more than that today. So I'll read his bio and we'll get into it. Dr. Brian Jones is a leader in the chiropractic profession with over 28 years of experience in the field. He earned his Doctor of Chiropractic degree from National College of Chiropractic in Chicago, where he developed a deep understanding of biochemistry, physiology, and anatomy. He is certified in quantum neurology, science-based nutrition, and FDN. Throughout his career, Dr. Brian has honed his skills and knowledge, particularly in addressing complex health issues. His passion lies in guiding patients who feel overwhelmed and lost in their health journey, offering them support and expertise every step of the way in their healing journey. By using best-in-class testing, Dr. Jones is able to uncover multiple areas of dysfunction to start intervening with healing technologies and lifestyle coaching, including vagus nerve rehabilitation, which we'll touch on today, brain tap, PEMF, laser acupuncture for allergy desensitization, NET, and of course, chiropractic. Dr. Jones, welcome to the show. It's cool to have this be full circle.
Thanks, Evan. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, it's really cool how it all started last fall at the conference. So like you said, I've been doing functional medicine for a long time. And here I saw at our conference that we had something called FDN show up. And I saw your booth out in the ballroom there where all the vendors are, and got to talk with some of you. And then it was really nice that Reed actually had a whole session to convey what FDN was and the approaches, obviously talking about the hidden stressors, the Dress for Success. And there was just something that really resonated with me about kind of the system he had in place. And I thought, I've been doing this for such a long time. I've had great success, but I'm a type of guy that just strives to be the best and to get more knowledge, more apt at testing, looking for the latest and greatest test. And so it was just fun to hook up with you guys. And I had a staff member there that's a certified clinical nutritionist. She was excited about it. And I thought, hey, let's just jump in. Let's just both do it, because I want to do it just to see what it's all about. But then hopefully let her do a lot of it in the office. So yeah, we're excited to be on this journey. It's awesome.
Awesome. So I normally start the show asking about someone's health journey if it's relevant. In this case, thank God you've been healthy most of your life.
Yes.
So I do want to start with this question, though, just to get the conversation moving. I would love to know what prompted you to go the chiropractic route in college, because that's still, health journey or not, I mean, that's not something that everyone is like considering, right? I think you still need to think outside the box to want to do that. So I am curious, what led you to wanting to pursue chiropractic medicine?
I was in sports, and between my sophomore and junior year of high school, I ended up herniating 2 discs in my low back. And at the time, I actually knew I wanted to do something in the health profession. I thought about being an osteopathy doctor, a DO. But then I lived about a year and a half in a chiropractor's office, getting therapy and adjustments for my disc issues. It was to the point to where I was begging for surgery. Like, I just couldn't take it anymore. So he referred me off to a surgeon. Thankfully, the surgeon told me, he goes, look, you're 17 years old. We're not going to do surgery on a 17-year-old. He goes, keep seeing your chiropractor. So like I said, I lived in the chiropractor's office for about a year and a half. And so that tipped the scale. I loved what this doctor did, how he was able to help me. Sometimes miracles happen in chiropractors' offices, like literally. And other times it's a journey. It can be a marathon. My story was a marathon. It took a long time for things to heal, but they did. And it just showed me the passion, the consistency that this doctor had to stay with me and not give up. And yeah, so here I am.
Okay, so fair enough. I mean, not like chronic disease health issues, but certainly there was something physical that actually went on that,
Yeah.
I mean, did prompt you to do that. So that's very cool. And I always, it's not the main point of the show today, but I always just want people to understand, especially since we're on YouTube, there's going to be someone that stumbles across this randomly. People don't understand how valid chiropractic and acupuncture and all this stuff is. So you probably could tell it better than me. If I'm not mistaken, didn't chiropractic medicine actually start because some guy did an adjustment that like resolved someone's hearing issues or something?
Yeah. So it was really cool. So yeah, that basically was it. So we had a janitor that was deaf, and so D.D. Palmer adjusted his. They theorized, I think it was T6 or T4, the upper thoracic spine, and the guy instantly could hear. So that kind of propelled. There's always been, we called them back in the Middle Ages, we called them bone setters, but there was always people in civilizations that moved bones, moved joints, mobilized the spine. But chiropractic became the first profession to really put a science behind it and do research. And so it's been really a blessing for me. I think it's one of the greatest professions out there. The nervous system is everything. And that's the core of what we believe. The nervous system controls every single thing that your body does. And you want that nervous system resilient. You want it intact. You want to remove the interference. And getting into FDN, which we'll talk about, is looking back at my case. I think my case probably could have been cut in half. Now, my doctor didn't do functional medicine. He didn't talk to me about diet or anything. I was a sugar addict. Man, when I was in high school, it was like, I grew up on a farm, so we had sulfur water, and I hated our sulfur water. So I lived on juice and pop. That was my beverages, man. I was drinking juice and pop all the time. And looking back, it's like, if I could have had somebody really help instruct me in the importance of diet, especially with controlling that inflammation, it could have been huge. I mean, there's the little things like that, helping people through that chronic pain. With people get off the refined foods and the sugar, the high fructose corn syrup, so much of their pain can be drastically reduced with just those simple measures.
I love that you have figured that out over time. I'm sure you figured it out pretty early into your career. I have a friend that does physical therapy, and he ends up now sending my wife Maddie and I, but she's an FDN. He sends us these cases when he does all the normal stuff, and it doesn't work because he always knows that it's like, well, there's probably something else here going on.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we've been able to help everyone perfectly, but anyone that he sent us, we're certainly not chiropractors or physical therapists. We don't do any body manipulation in any sense or any exercises. That's not our job. And yet we've been able to reduce pain for these people. So it's something that certainly is a contributing factor. Now, I want to kind of walk through the journey, I guess, of you as a practitioner and just your career, because you do have a lot of different areas of expertise here. And again, the wall itself shows it. So when you graduated, obviously you have this degree in chiropractic medicine, but now over these 28 years, I think it was said in your bio, I mean, a lot of stuff's been added on. So because you said that you strive to be the best at what you do. So did you already get back into learning the second that you graduated, or did it take a few years to start adding some new things on? And then what were those?
Yeah, so right after graduation, I became a seminar junkie. I just love to learn. And when people come to you, a lot of times they open up and start sharing about other health issues they have. And it's like, I think Reed is the one I got this phrase from, but and I love it because maybe it's a little ego, whatever, but I want to be the last doctor my patients ever have to see. And in order to do that, you have to have a broad spectrum and a great understanding of how the body works. So when people are asking me about their thyroid, about GI issues, about cancer, about Lyme disease, it's like, I better start learning this stuff. So at a very young age, young in my profession, I started attending seminars as much as I could to grasp these concepts, to learn how to heal the body naturally. And actually had the privilege of working with the late Dr. Kyle Morgan up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I was up there for a couple years, just once a month. She had a clinic. She was a DO, but she really had a niche for Lyme, cancer, allergies, just some really immune challenged people. And she was a master at the Rife machine. Like, she could dial that thing into the frequencies that were needed for the specific conditions. And then she would do some IV cocktails and different things. But she had me do all of the adjustments, the laser, the supplement protocols for these patients. And we had just a phenomenal time working together, integrating both sides of the equation with kind of, not that she was really allopathic, because she hardly used medicine at all. It was more the IV cocktails, but the right frequency machine, and then getting these people on the right diet. So that was my job. I'd come in and basically did FDN in a sense. And I learned so much from her and from the patients, that there's so much out there that can offer hope to some of the worst patients when it comes to stage 4 cancers and Lyme disease and mold toxicity. It's just amazing the stuff that's out there that can help these people. And I think, first of all, is knowing that there's hope. That's huge, and encouraging people with these healing opportunities. I always try to make sure I use that word, as opposed to, you've got severe dysfunction in your liver. Your liver enzymes are off the chart. Say, you know what, your liver's burdened a little bit, but this is the healing opportunity. We know what we can do now to get that liver healthy and happy again. And it's really about offering hope, but man, you got to have the knowledge. And so, yeah, I guess getting back to your question, I was like a seminar junkie. I started learning from the get-go because I wanted to be that last doctor. I wanted to be the primary care physician for my patients. And actually, I am that for a lot of my patients. I'm their family doctor. So you have to have that knowledge on, even if I don't want to dive into something and I might refer them out, there's concepts I'm going to teach them, right? With the dress, the diet, the rest, the exercise, the stress reduction, certain supplements that will help their bodies through whatever it is they're dealing with. So
I love this mindset around just lifelong learning, because this is the way I word it to our practitioners, because you can fall into two camps here. There's one camp that keeps learning and doesn't execute and take clients. And then there's the other that, they kind of are so actually good at the business side. This is a small minority, but they're so good at the business side that they just get right into it and they stop learning. And I think the answer is a middle ground. I think
right,
you get some
got to be
base training.
balanced.
Right. Yeah. You get some base training, whether that's FDN or in your case, Doctor of Chiropractic Medicine. You can help people in some way already. But I think as people who have entered the healthcare space, and I would apply this to Western medicine docs, chiropractors, acupuncturists, FDNs, whatever, until we have all the answers for health, which no one has every single answer yet, I think we kind of signed up for a moral duty to keep on learning. It doesn't mean you have to do it 10 hours a day, but just consistently saying, hey, I'm going to educate myself and be better. And I know something like FDN obviously wouldn't be anything like going to, several years of college for training, but still to be 28 years in and then pursue a course it's not the easiest or smallest or shortest online course. I really have an interesting respect for that. So even before you went through FDN, though, at some point during your career, you had mentioned to me that you did add in functional labs. And I love the phrase that you used, which was almost like this whack-a-mole approach. So if you remember, when did functional labs become a part of your practice?
Really early on. So always have been big into ordering blood work, but from a young age, I was ordering a lot of the cortisol testing, the saliva testing, been using that for years as well. Didn't do a lot of stool things. I've done that a little bit, but just never did it. Didn't have the proficiency, didn't have the training in it. I have done hair tissue analysis. I prefer, just for identifying toxic metals, I prefer the UTEC. It's the urinary toxic element challenge, and where you use DMSA as a chelating agent. That is a wonderful test. It's kind of the gold standard. That's what people in the medical profession recognize as being the gold standard for toxicity of the metals. So those are my main labs. Going to FDN, like I said, I was kind of the whack-a-mole. I order some blood work, see what shows up. We better do maybe a UTEC. I see some signs of maybe toxicity. And what I loved about FDN is Reed was saying how you got to run the foundational labs. You got to run these core labs. And it gives you that overview, that 30,000 foot view of what's going on in that patient's chemistry, their biochemistry. And you get that big picture, then you can really formulate a sensible game plan for that patient. You can customize it and individualize it to see what foods they need to avoid based on the sensitivity testing, what they, I can go on, but you get the picture. There's multiple labs that's going to give you multiple healing opportunities, and you can really hit the ground running with that patient.
And I don't know what I always say this for him, but I don't know that Reed thinks this. I'm sure he would agree with it. Going back to that concept of no one out there has every single answer for health yet. We do the best that we can, but it's not perfect. The system itself, what it allows us to do, because I've seen this, I've been doing this for 7-8 years now. I've never done all the foundational labs on a client, no matter who it was and how sick they were or how not sick they perceived themselves to be, that we didn't find something to work on, like something that we could actually do something about. And with that said, it's like, okay, well, if nothing's out there is perfect, the next best thing would be a system consistently find things for someone to work on, you would think. So I think that's where we're at with FDN right now. And I know that I appreciated that you wanted to share this, because I saw in the notes you were interested in sharing how chiropractic medicine could be, or chiropractors rather, should be integrating something like FDN. So as we kind of transition to that, I'm also interested in, how do you as a chiropractor, let's say prior to FDN, how did you decide when a client would get lab testing? Because I'm sure you get some people that came in for a car, just want to, fix up their neck, but then their decision that we're going to do some testing. So what were those clients like that you decided, hey, we're going to pursue this?
Well, part of it's a conversation too, and asking them, digging deeper into their symptomatology, but also asking them, have you been working with a doctor? Has anybody checked your thyroid? Because I'll ask them about, well, your lateral third of your eyebrows thin. That's a thyroid symptom. Oh, really? Yeah. And do you get cold hands and feet all the time? I said, when's the last time the thyroid's checked? So it's a conversation. You open it up. You see if anybody's been engaging with this patient. More times than not, they'll say, no, my doctor hasn't, mentioned this at all. Would you be interested in diving into this and seeing if we can help you? And obviously a lot of people are interested in investing in their health. So then we take them down that road of diving into their functional labs and helping them course correct, if you will, what they've been doing, showing them you're here because of XYZ. Mm-hmm. Your diet's not right. You say you don't exercise. you're a 35-year-old mom of 3 kids, you're homeschooling, you're stressed. So then you get them on that dress protocol.
Nice. All right. So then with FDN now having more of a clear system, never having to do really the whack-a-mole approach ever again, how do you see this? Because actually, I should correct myself here. When did you graduate? Because it was fairly recently, right?
Yeah, I think it was back in May.
Okay. I
I
mean,
think it was,
yeah.
I think
So
it was
fair
May.
enough. So
Yep.
what does this look like for you now? Is it the same thing of just, all right, we have to ask the questions first to see who's even going to be interested in this or open-minded to it. But now is it truly a system of, hey, like we're doing the FDN system with these clients to help them get better. But you have a lot of other stuff. So I guess I'm almost thinking out loud. What I'm trying to get to is with a person like you who can offer so many things, who said yourself, you're not about the whack-a-mole approach. I guess what I'm trying to get to is how do you integrate so many things like the muscle testing, the other therapies that I listed off in the bio, FDN and all that, because it could get expensive fast. So
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something actually we're still in the process of how do we incorporate everything that we do, because our clinic offers a lot of different things, and it's trying to, I guess, bring more clarity to the FDN side of things, like how to market that. So that is something we're working through right now. We have patients that have already signed up, and personally, what I'm doing, how we're starting out is it's a year. We're going to run the foundational labs. We're going to do 12 visits spaced out over a year. We're going to meet with them more often than those first 3 months and then space it out. But we really feel a year is important. Some people just really need their hand held through this process because it's new. Some people, it's like deer in the headlights when you tell them you can't do gluten or dairy or whatever for a few months, and they're like, what? So you're going to have to hold their hand. So we feel like we really want to be with a patient that first year, so that by the end of that year, they should be very confident and comfortable with these lifestyle changes. And we want these lifestyle changes to be just that, something that's going to last a lifetime, not just for a few months. We've reached a goal and they go back to old habits. So we feel like a year approach is very sensible and doable.
I like that. I think you're actually going to have a lot happier clients, only because there's nothing worse. We've all been through this to some degree. When you're doing something for 2 months, you spend a bunch of money, and then you find yourself falling off. I mean, a lot of the people, especially that probably go to chiropractic, I would imagine, you're working with a lot of 30, 40, 50-year-olds. I mean, it's not been a couple of months that they've had bad habits. It's been years, if not decades. And the worst part is many of the habits, they might not even be aware that they were bad. So like you said, like with the gluten and dairy thing, like what, this was something I couldn't do or shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And so to change that paradigm and truly have it implemented in their life to a point where they don't have to think about it as much anymore, that's tough. I look back and it's like crazy. It's like, wow, I've been gluten-free, at least intentionally, for 7 years. I don't know if I unintentionally consumed anything, right? But I've been trying.
Right.
And you get to a point where if you get this stuff nailed down in the beginning and you have the right resources and the right people around you, I don't think about this anymore. Like, this is never something that's hard for me to decide on a daily basis. I'm just like, oh no, I just don't do that. And quite frankly, I don't even think I get that far. It's just assumed that I'm not doing it. But it takes a while to rewrite that stuff. And if we're really going to serve people at the highest level, I like this. I also want to say for the audience really quick, this is what's cool about FDN, right? Not everyone has to work with someone for a year, but the point is you can take the FDN system and do with it what you will or what you find to be best for your own clients. If you're only working in a specific niche where these people are like, so sick that they've known something was wrong for years and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get better. Yeah, I mean, they're probably going to take those steps in a shorter amount of time and keep those habits, quicker than a year.
Yep. And like we were talking about
um,
earlier, education's everything. And during that year, it's just about keeping information out there in front of them to educate them on the harm that gluten can do, and educating them about the microbiome and what dysbiosis means, how that impacts their health. Because the more educated a client is, the more compliant they will be.
Right.
And you want compliance.
Yes. Something else I wanted to touch on today. We have probably 5 podcasts that we could do together, to be honest. But I know that I always try to go to the notes and what the guest says is most important to them. And I do think the muscle testing thing is something I'd like to bring up. It's not something we've touched on much in this podcast at all, somehow, in 350 episodes. And when I hear it from someone like you, that's when there's an additional level of credibility. I'm not condemning anyone else out there who does it, but obviously it is something that's kind of strange to understand.
Yep.
I don't fully understand it. So how does that work? And why is that still so important to you, even with all these functional tests?
So one, it's real-time testing. It's the patient's in front of me and it's something I can do right then and there. So it's another way to gather information. There's some specific kits that we have. We had a company that's no longer in existence, but there's a company in Canada that's took over, but we used a company called Life Work Potential that would make kits. And these kits would have the vibrational energy or frequency of bacteria and viruses and fungus and molds and parasites and foods, toxic elements, lead, mercury, cadmium. And when you place those on the body, okay, and we always use the governing vessel 20 or 21 at the crown of the head, it tends to be one of the more sensitive areas, so it cuts out some false negatives. Mm-hmm. Basically, it's just we're checking in with the nervous system. Does the frequency that we're putting on the body, is it creating stress in the system somewhere? If the muscle goes weak, it's just, once again, it's information. I'm not going to diagnose somebody and say, you have Lyme based upon this test, but you're going to clinically correlate, right? Mm-hmm. If they tell me, yeah, I've lived in the woods my whole life, I've got joint pain everywhere, I'm fatigued, I'm dizzy, no doctor can figure me out, I'm going to strongly think this person probably has Lyme's. And so as opposed to sending them out for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 worth of tests that sometimes aren't real accurate, mm-hmm. That's just something really easy, really affordable for the patient, and it helps me clue me into what could be causing all their issues.
Do you find, are people overall receptive to it as clients? Absolutely. Or do you have the people that are, okay, cool, nice.
Yeah. Most people are like, how does this work? And I explain it. Energy is hard to explain because you can't see energy. I tell people all the time, nobody questions how a cell phone works, but we put this thing up to our head and our voice is carried on frequencies bouncing off of cell phone towers and satellites, and our voice gets transmitted to someone else's phone literally around the world. And it's all energy. Life is energy. So it's a little weird at first until you understand how it works. Yes, there's dog and pony shows out there. I hate to say it, but there's some people out there that do things with muscle testing to sell supplements and to make a buck, and you have to be leery of those type of people. I get that. Mm-hmm. But muscle testing by someone who's been trained in it, who's preferably licensed and has integrity behind it, and it's doing it for the right reasons, it can offer a wealth of information, and it can really help us even then find out, you know what, I think we need to do some more testing to confirm this, to maybe have some more objective data. So like if I muscle test a heavy metal and they've shown some signs of toxicity and I see a really high cholesterol level, you know, cholesterol is a protective thing. When cholesterol is high, it's high for a reason. It could be from stress, it could be an infection, it could be toxicity. But when I start seeing different scenarios add up, it's like, let's do a UTEC. Let's do the gold standard test. Let's do that chelation challenge and see what happens. In a high percentage of the time, we're going to find something. So it's another way to correlate. It's amazing with food sensitivities. I mean, you could run the MRT or some other food sensitivity testing, but when I muscle test and then I tell the person, I want you to go 3 weeks ultra strict, don't let this food touch your lips for the next 3 weeks, and they come back, I mean, I've literally seen miracles happen. Yeah. And it's amazing. I didn't have to order labs, but sometimes we do, because I'm not going to sit there and do 176 foods, right? I might injure their rotator cuff with all that testing, but I usually do like the top 10 or 15 foods that we commonly see. But sometimes, like you said, you got to run labs because there's, like, I had a patient that I swore she had rheumatoid or lupus, and we ran all the labs and nothing came back. And I put her on an anti-inflammatory diet for 3 weeks. I said, no grains, no dairy, no sugar, no caffeine. And she said, my energy improved, but my joints still hurt. So we ran basically an MRT test. It wasn't that one, but it was something similar.
Sure.
Strawberries were at the top of the list. And she goes, oh my gosh, I eat strawberries like every day. It's my favorite fruit. I put them in my yogurt. I put them on my cereal. I eat them by themselves. That was her trigger for all that inflammation. So if you don't test, you're guessing. And why guess with someone's health?
Right. So, okay, so the muscle testing is another tool in the tool belt. And in fact, it could actually be even used technically as one of a few things that you have to prompt
Right.
further testing, right?
Yep.
Because muscle testing, right, like you said, you can do for free. I don't need to take your urine. I don't need to charge you $5,000 for something. So I like that. It makes sense to me. And I love that you've had people that have actually come back and I mean, those are results you can't fake. Like, I do understand the placebo is real, but like when someone removes a food and, you know, literally there's that big of a change after 3 weeks, I'm hard pressed to believe that there's something there. I also, this is the approach I try to take to these things, that just because I can't understand something fully or don't in the moment, you're absolutely right. That doesn't mean that it's not real. I mean, to your point about calling on the phone, let's take it a step further. I'm speaking into this overpriced microphone and then this camera that's literally, I mean, this thing is basically an inch by half an inch. This thing is somehow conveying me to the audience here. You're in Ohio. I'm in North Carolina. That's remarkable. And then there's people around the world watching us live in real time. I mean, I can't explain that either. And I'm positive that that exists. And if it doesn't, holy crap, we're really screwed. So
just something cool about our nervous system. So we have autonomic reactions. So autonomic reactions are things you can't help. You can't stop them. So yawning is an autonomic reaction. Getting goosebumps when someone touches you, a sneeze. So these are things that happen automatically. It's an autonomic response. But getting to the yawn. So you can watch a movie that's not it's real time to you, but you can watch a movie, see somebody yawn, and it triggers a yawn in you. You can watch a family movie that maybe you had from when you were a baby, and someone's in the background yawning, and when you see that person yawn, it triggers a yawn in you. I mean, the whole thing of energy, it's just amazing. The triggers that we have and how there's a connection with us, even if it was from the past. And that goes down into the holographic body and transferring energy through time. That's a whole other topic, but it's just amazing how our nervous systems pick all that up.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm almost slicing our podcast into different segments today. But again, that's only because we have so much to talk about. There was something else that I thought was particularly important to mention today, because I don't think it gets, I mean, maybe it's been mentioned 2 or 3 times on our entire show, which is sad. So the vagus nerve. And I know that this is an important part of your work. So first, can we define what that even is? I think many people have heard the term vagus nerve. I don't think they could explain it. So let's touch on that. And then I'd love to know how that's involved in the work that you do.
Yeah, so the vagus nerve is a cranial nerve. It originates in our head, in our brain, inside that cranium. And it's really the gist of the vagus nerve, to keep it simple. It regulates the parasympathetic activity. So you have sympathetic, you have parasympathetic, and this is the autonomic nervous system. So this is the portion of the nervous system that's under involuntary control. You don't have to sit there and tell your heart to beat. It just beats. You don't have to tell your stomach to digest your food. It just digests your food. And all that happens from these 2 nervous systems. So we have one that's all about survival. It's about fleeing the lion. It's about fighting back. And too many people live in that state today. The parasympathetic is the thriving nervous system. It's healing. It's the rest and digest system. And most people have a sympathetic overload. They're just living day to day in this stressed environment. And so a lot of the parasympathetic activity gets dampened. So that's why people have so many digestive disorders, right? When's the last time somebody ate in a parasympathetic state? I mean, very few families sit at a table anymore together. They're sitting there watching the news, freaking out about the election or the wars in Ukraine and Israel, or they're driving down the road and eating. You can't be in a parasympathetic mode driving down the road and trying to eat. But that's a parasympathetic activity. And so the vagus nerve is the one that regulates that. So the vagus nerve gets tamped or dampened down a lot because of the state that we live in. So we need to bring that parasympathetic tone back up. And there's different ways to do that. I mean, there's simple hacks even by like triggering a yawn. So a simple thing to trigger a yawn is retract your jaw backwards, look into a bright light, take a deep breath, and that will typically trigger a yawn. And that's a parasympathetic state. The deep breathing exercises, singing, gargling, these are different ways to stimulate the vagus nerve, cold showers or cold plunge. But we have technology in the office that helps us kind of tap into vagus nerve rehab with lasers, radio frequencies, specific adjustments actually can do it. But it is key to healing. If you are not in a parasympathetic state, you cannot heal. You can't heal in a sympathetic state. Your body's too concerned about surviving, fighting, and flighting. So it is huge to get that vagus nerve up and running if you want to see healing take place.
In its most fundamental form, I think that's actually the main problem of today's world is we have bigger stressors than ever before. We can call it more consistent stressors because certainly there's been some crazy things that have happened throughout time. But since we aren't in that parasympathetic, even when we're sleeping, a lot of us, because of the frequencies around us or because of how late we went to bed, we're staring at phones, we're never truly resting. So it's almost like we have more burden than ever before, and we are involuntarily, if we don't know about it, but certainly voluntarily, if we know the bad habits and we continue to do them, taking away our ability to heal from the burden that's on us. It's like, well, no wonder people are getting sick. One quick question about the vagus nerve is this is something I just read randomly online. I never fact checked it myself, but it would make a lot of sense. I heard that the sound of like running water, whether it's a waterfall, waves, a creek, that can actually stimulate it. Do you know anything about that? Would that be true?
Yeah, so it's all about certain frequencies, and you're exactly right. It's for whatever reason our body loves water, whether it's waves crashing on the ocean, a waterfall. I think that's why a lot of people just like showers too, right?
Yes.
Showers are relaxing, and negative ions coming off from running water is huge. So yeah, water's a great thing. So when you were talking about the podcast or in the podcast earlier about the seminar coming up in San Diego, and you mentioned beach, it's like, that's going to be a cool seminar.
Yeah, right. Well, and I thank God I live 13 minutes away from one now. It's packed, but it's very nice. And I thought about this because I made a joke about this before because you know how we all have our like sub areas of health that we really nerd out on. I love the light thing and circadian biology. I'm fascinated by that. And I always thought about how crazy it is because I grew up in Pennsylvania, about 5 minutes from the Jersey border. So everyone went to the Jersey Shore when I was a kid. And you would watch the town on Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day weekend. I mean, the town that is an hour and a half minimum, or as far as 2.5 hours away from the beach, would clear out for people to drive and go spend 3 to 5 grand to go live at the beach for a week. And what do? You go sit on the sand and you'll play in the ocean. And then like on one end you get it because it's a vacation and you're taking a break from work. I got that. But like we chose that for a reason. That became a thing for a reason. We're literally paying all this money to go sit in the sand, ground, to get sun all day, which feels great, and then to be around water. Like there's certain things that are just wired into us that we need to do. And for whatever reason, those reasons those might be, we could prove some of it scientifically, but others, like we just intuitively know everyone loves that. You all feel good when you go out and do it. And we'll pay some big money for it.
If you think about people and their vacations, like vacation should be relaxing. And it seems like there's two camps, people that love the beach or people that love the mountains.
True.
But both of them are absolutely relaxing. And I think our bodies crave that rest, that relaxation, that peace and tranquility. But so many of us ignore those signals that our body gives us. And we just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And it takes its toll. And I think we need to be more in tune with our bodies, honor what our bodies are asking or requesting us to do. And I think here in America, we're just in that, everybody is like work, work, work. And I love work ethic. I love that tenacity that we have as Americans. But I think our downfall is we don't balance it very well with resting, with having fun, laughing, taking time to really rest, and it catches up with people.
Absolutely. With the last 10 or so minutes of the podcast, I wanted to ask something because we have worldwide listeners and certainly countrywide listeners. So, do you do work online? Do you take clients there, or is it just in person?
Nope, we do virtual as well.
Well, excellent. Can we shout out then one, if they wanted a chiropractor in person, there's going to be someone that's going to listen that's near you. So can we shout out
Yep,
that and then also
yep,
shout out where they can find you online?
yep. So the website is so that's a DR, joneschiropractic.com. So drjoneschiropractic.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Now, with that said, I love this question in general, but I always love asking it to people who have been in the space for a long time because I'm sure there's going to be stories that you think about, an hour later, but I'd love to know what comes to your mind initially. This could be with just chiropractic. It could be with any modality that you use. It could have been recently with FDN. Doesn't matter to me. I would love to know of a story, to the degree that you're able to share, of someone that came into your office, whether it was virtually or physically, and they're kind of at the end of their rope. And I think most of us that have been here long enough have felt that with someone. Like, this is the last thing that they're going to try. They got you for whatever reason. And yet you were able to kind of give them the right tools to get their life back. I'd love to hear about a story like that if anything comes to mind.
Yeah, so it's a middle-aged woman that had Lyme disease, and nobody could figure it out, and basically they wrote her off. The medications that they tried, so antidepressants, the stuff for sleep, Lyrica, different things, no go. Side effects were too severe, and so we took the approach. We found it with muscle testing. We did series and series of adjustments, got her off certain foods that she was sensitive to. And this was before I was doing FDN, so this is basically muscle testing, some hormone, cortisol levels. So it was lifestyle and supplements and chiropractic. And the combination of that, once again, this was a marathon. You're not going to see Lyme disease turn around overnight. There's just so many things. Like, eventually heavy metal showed up. So you've had people on your podcast that have shared in great detail how Lyme it seems like it uncovers a lot of other things, and whether they coexist or we can get into that later, but just a lot of things showed up. So you had foods, you had the Lyme and Lyme co-infections like Babesia and Bartonella would show up once in a while with the muscle testing. And then you had the heavy metals. So it was systematically going through, helping her body deal with each of those challenges. And it revolutionized her life. She was actually able to have a family. I don't know if she was infertile at the time, but she had children. I think probably physically she couldn't. She was just in that much fatigue and turmoil and stress. But it got her to the point to where she was healthy, resilient, and could have a family. And that's rewarding. That's just, there's nothing better than helping someone be the best version of themselves, to get their life back on track. And it's why I do what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. My two favorite parts about all of this are, and you mentioned this earlier with the hope thing. It's like when you just have the conversation with someone who's at the end of the rope, if you are good at this, like, you really can kind of reignite them just that day. Like, if you say something different to them that they never heard, or you show them a new perspective, like, you can watch them come back. They're sicker than most people, but you watch them come back to life, realizing that there's still something else to try. And then when you actually execute on this stuff well enough, that it's like, hey, no, your life is back. You get to go enjoy the rest of your time here, because our time here is very short. That's one of the best things that we could ever give to someone. So I love that. I think that's absolutely amazing. What else I would like to know is, what the heck is next for Dr. Brian Jones? Because you've been doing this for 28 years. Obviously, business varies for people, but with someone who's as serious as you and dedicated to his finding new knowledge as you are, I would imagine that if you wanted to, you probably could wrap up shop soon and say, hey, that's enough. And it seems like, in a sense, you're just getting started. I mean, you literally just did the FDN course, right? And had one of your employees do it. So what is next for you, and what is your goal for the future?
Keep doing what I'm doing. I mean, my passion is like as high as it's ever been to help people. I love it. And it's almost like the more you're equipped to handle the tough cases, it seems like God, the universe, sends those people to you. Yep. So the more you learn, the more you're confident that you can help people, it just seems like they come. And I love helping people. I love giving them hope because, when I deal with the cancer patients, an oncologist office doesn't give them a lot of hope. It's doom and gloom. And when they come to our office, we're always encouraging them. We're not giving them false hope, but I know how remarkable these bodies are. And so much of it too is a mindset with those patients. And so we're always encouraging them, always telling them to stay positive. And then we do a whole thing with that, with their mindset, getting them to start thinking correctly. So I'm going to continue doing this. Like I said, I continue to educate myself, but the thing I really want to work on now is passing that on. So my son and daughter-in-law practice with me.
Nice.
And so it's becoming a teacher now too, to equip them to kind of pass the torch, but I'm not going anywhere.
Not anytime soon, baby. I love it. And I love that was such a great way to kind of wrap this up. I love what you said about, you don't want to give them the false hope, but the belief and stuff, it does matter. And that's not a subjective opinion. That's actually objective, because all these pharmaceuticals that come to market, they have to pass placebo. What is placebo? It's like think about that. The standard is passing human belief. Yep. That's really what it is, which is quite crazy when you think about it. And, there's a time and place to be realistic. Like if someone is a high likelihood to die in a week, they probably deserve to know that so that they can, make the plans and do the things necessary to live out that week as strong as possible. But at the same time, I won't even get too deep into it. I'll just say some of the messages and the wording that I've heard given to people with diagnoses like the ones that you've mentioned with cancer, I could be wrong, but I almost swear that sometimes the way that it was worded is just as bad, if not worse sometimes, than the dang diagnosis itself. I'm not saying all the time. Yeah. I'm just saying the weight that person walks around with now, because someone of authority and someone of intelligence and high education said to them, you're going to have this happen to you. At the very least, we'd all agree that that's powerful. So to give them hope without false hope, right? Because flattery is dumb too. Like if you're telling them things that aren't true, that's not going to help either. I think that's amazing. So Dr. Jones Chiropractic, you can find him in person or online. So he is in Ohio if you guys are near the area. And just wondering, what town is it in?
The practice is in Elida, Ohio.
Okay, awesome. I've only been to Ohio like twice, but if I'm ever in town, I've actually done this with other people on the podcast. Like if you ever get a random call from me, it means I'm traveling, and I can always use an adjustment. So that's for sure.
Yes. Super.
Now, with that said, we have a signature question on the show here that we ask everyone, and I don't want to predict it too much, but I always find that the people that are the most educated and have done the most stuff in this space actually have the seemingly simplest answers. So I'll take a wild guess that it will be something like that, because the simple things added up are the ones that lead to the biggest results. The question is this: if we could give you a magic wand and you could get every single person who would listen to this or watch this to do one thing for their health, so that means you can get us all to start doing one thing, or you can get us all to stop doing one thing, what is the one thing that Dr. Jones gets us to do?
I'll keep it really simple. Live loved. If you're not living in love, you're living in fear. And living loved every day is the start. That's how health starts. Love is the universal cure. The frequency of love can cure anything. It's a mindset though. So living loved.
I normally don't follow up with that, but I have to ask only because I think that's something that first of all, I believe this, but I think to some people it would sound nice and they're like, well, how do I do that? Is there any tip on how they could start doing that?
So ask themselves, do I truly love myself? You'd be surprised how many people don't. And then they have to start forgiving themselves. If you don't love yourself, how do you think your body can heal? If you don't even love this body that you're in, if you don't love yourself, it's really hard to heal. So you have to live loved, be secure in that love, and then share love with others.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, it resonated with someone, as Rihanna just said in the comments. She's like, love yourself. So love it. If you guys are watching live and you want to send a thank you to Dr. Jones, please just drop it in the chat. We appreciate you guys. And Dr. Jones, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I have a feeling that it might be very much worth bringing you on once a quarter or once every several months just to revisit some of these topics and kind of dive deep into them. I think we could probably spend